Just a minute, sir. A very happy evening to everyone. On behalf of Manimalan Engineering College, management, principal, HODs, and all staff members, I welcome you all for this AICT Pre-Rana training program. On behalf of everyone, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. S. Murgavalli, Professor and HOD CSC Department, Pre-Rana Scheme Principal Investigator, Manimalan Engineering College. I wish to thank AICT for having sanctioned pre-Rana scheme for our college. We have been organizing GATE, GRE, TOEFL, IELTS classes for our students. Totally 4 classes have been arranged, 2 hours for each class, 2 for GATE session that is on Monday and Tuesday, and 2 for GRE and TOEFL. GRE, TOEFL, IELTS that is on Wednesday and Thursday. So classes will go till October. So now I hand over the session to the presenter, Mr. Ram Sharma.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's get started with understanding the GRE exam in the first place. Okay, so what is the GRE exam and what we do? Okay, first let me introduce ourselves, the Galvanize Test Prep team. Okay, students from over 200 plus Indian cities and over 100 countries all over the world are using our products. We have several products in the market. There is a vocabulary app. Vocabulary is a very crucial part of your GRE preparation. Apart from all preparation for reading comprehension or the specific question types, you must also prepare for vocabulary. And we have an amazing app out there, which a lot of us users have found very useful because a lot of research has gone into this, right? So there are several such apps for GRE, for SAT. We are quite sought after in the market. So Galvanize Test Prep was founded and managed by alumni of Harvard, Stanford, IIT Madras, and IIM Ahmedabad. And it is a one-stop shop for all your test prep solutions for study abroad. So even if you want to apply to a college, we'll help you even with applications. So right from starting writing an exam to applying to a college, getting your visa applications ready, we help you in every step of your process. So what we do, what is special about Galvanizes, this is something that needs to be told, that students need to understand before getting into any course. Okay, personalized test prep for GRE, TOEFL, and IELTS. What is personalized? That is based on your own strengths and weaknesses. You will get a specific study plan, study schedule, which you can follow to achieve your goals. So you won't go and sit in a classroom course with all other students of different strengths and weaknesses without anyone focusing on your particular pain points. Okay, the course will be personalized to meet your needs. And there is expert-led admissions counseling for MS, MBA, and PhD degrees abroad, and step-by-step guidance on applying to universities abroad. So, like I said, with the application process, which universities to apply to, which would be very ambitious and which would be within your grasp, things like that. And there are also English learning solutions that we provide for academic and personal success. This is our academic team. Pavitra Srinivasan is our founder, and she's also the product director. She works closely with the English team in creating our products. Sriram Venkatraman, he'll be taking your quant session for GRE tomorrow. He's an alumni of IIT Madras. He is both a chief learning architect and also a math expert. And there's Divya Srinivasan, who's a admissions counseling expert, and several people from University of Tennessee, San Jose University, MA Linguistics are from EFLU. This is my colleague Siddharth. And this is myself, Ram Sharma. I'm an English pedagogy designer. I have done my MPhil also in Madras University. And we have Rohini, customer expert, who is from University of Texas. So all these people strive towards giving the best to our students, making sure they reach their dream universities, right? So let's understand what the GRE exam is. Graduate Record Examination is a standardized exam, and this exam is conducted for you to enter master's or PhD degrees in the US and in several other countries, even Canada, Singapore. There are several countries that accept the GRE exam scores. Okay, what is special about a studying in the US or abroad, right? There is a lot of practical application oriented studies there, especially when you go to masters in areas like data science. There is a lot of technology oriented, application oriented studies in the US, and that is why it is still sought after. And especially in the times of corona, when you may be wondering if it is worth going to the US and studying, I'll tell you something. Right now the situation is this way. China and India are the two countries that send most number of people to US universities. Okay, so around 50 to 60% of the students will be from China and India. Now that the condition between China and US is breaking apart slightly, there is more opportunity for Indian students to get seats in good colleges. So more than ever, now is a better time to apply for the GRE and apply for masters or PhD in the US, because there are brighter chances of you getting into good universities. All right. And US, there is no doubt, it has excellent infrastructure, and there is no better place to study masters, because there is research opportunities and there is a variety of courses available in the US. So for all this, GRE is the gateway. All right. Without GRE, you cannot do any of these. That is why this exam is so important. Now let's understand the structure of the exam, what it tests, and why these things are there. Okay. So the GRE exam comes for 340 points. Okay, the lowest you can get is 260, and the highest you can get is 340. What is the lowest of 260 mean? Okay, I'll tell you something. The US has a really good system in mind. That is, they do not like to discourage their students. Getting a 0 on an exam can be heartbreaking. We know that, right? So from that very minute point onwards, they take care that their students are not discouraged, demotivated. Whether a student prefers engineering or prefers art is up to the student, and we should not break their heart by giving 0 marks. Okay, that is a philosophy they follow. So basically, on our scale, 130 to 170 would be 0 to 40. All right, so 130 is basically 0, but in the US, this is how they maintain their standards. A verbal score of 130 to 170, a quant score of 130 to 170 will be totaled, and your GRE score will be on 260 to 340. So anything over 300, anything over 320 will be an excellent score. When you score over 320 and when you have academic records to boost you, you will get really high class universities like Stanford or Harvard, right? So what does a verbal score and quant score constitute? We'll look at it in detail. Apart from these two sections, there will also be an analytical writing section where you'll have to write 2 essays. Okay, this shows how well you can reason, how you can understand logic, and how you can communicate well using your written language. All right. So the analytical writing score does not come under these 340 points. There is a separate scale of 1 to 6. Some universities do not look for analytical writing scores, but in cases where you have to write research papers and stuff, they will be looking for analytical writing scores. So do not ignore this part. So apart from the 340 points, you will get a different score of 1 to 6 for your analytical writing. What is analytical writing? Analytical writing is understanding a given statement and analyzing it using your reasoning skills. That's all right? Let's look at the exam structure in detail. So in verbal, you'll have at least 2 sections. Okay, each section will be for 30 minutes, and each section will have 20 questions. So the verbal section will have different question types ranging from fill in the blanks to reading comprehension to critical reasoning. There will be a whole variety of question types, and each section will have all those question types. It will be for 30 minutes, and you'll have to solve 20 questions in those 30 minutes. The quant section is also similar. There will be at least 2 quant sections, and each section will be for 35 minutes. There will be 5 minutes extra, and you'll have to solve the same 20 questions. Okay, a calculator, in-screen calculator will be provided for questions wherever necessary, so you don't have to worry about anything else. Apart from these 4 sections, there will be one extra section. Okay, it is called the unscored section or the research section. So this unscored section could be either a verbal section or a quant section, and there won't be any score given for it, but you will not be told which section is the unscored section. Right? This is, I know it could sound mean. For example, you go to your GRE exam center, you write 2 essays at the very beginning because your GRE exam starts with 2 essays. You'll have to spend 30 minutes on each essay, write 2 essays, and then only start the verbal or quant section. Okay. And the very first section could be a verbal section, which you may attempt very sincerely, but it could turn out to be an unscored section. You will never know which one is the unscored section and which one is the scored section. So you'll have to attempt all the 5 sections, 2 verbal, 2 quant, plus 1 unscored section, which could be verbal or quant, very sincerely. You'll have to have that stamina to write that exam. It's for 3 hours, 45 minutes, close to, okay? So you have to sit there and write this exam for 3 hours, 45 minutes without much distraction, with a lot of focus and with a lot of mental stamina. That is what this exam tests. Are you able to focus so much and use your reasoning skills so much to be able to crack such an exam? If you're able to do that, then you're ready for an MS in the US. All right. Now let's look at the GRE verbal reasoning section. It is called verbal reasoning for a reason. All right. Until 2012, the GRE exam tested different skills. You used to, a lot of students, me included, we studied a lot of words. We had to know the synonyms. We had to know the antonyms. And that is how the GRE worked. They'll ask for synonyms, antonyms in the exam, and it won't be so interesting. But now, since 2012, they have changed a lot of things, and the GRE is no more testing just your vocabulary. Vocabulary is not an important part of your GRE. Yes, it is a major part of your GRE, but it's not the crucial part. You don't have to mug up a lot of words for your verbal reasoning section. It all revolves around reasoning now. All right. So, for example, a fill in the blanks question will have 2 parts in it. There will be a blank in one part. There won't be a blank in another part. You'll have to find a clue from the second part to fill the blank in the first part. That is reasoning. Okay. Understanding the context, understanding what is given in a reading comprehension passage or a fill in the blanks question, and trying to fill the blank. That is what is happening now. So you guys are lucky to be able to attempt such an exam instead of mugging up 1,500 words and answering questions. Right? Now, the GRE verbal reasoning section will have 3 major types of questions. Okay, there is reading comprehension, which will be around half of your verbal reasoning section. So you'll have at least 10 questions from reading comprehension. There will be 1 long passage and a couple of short passages. And apart from that, you'll have text completion questions. Text completion question is basically fill in the blanks question, but there will be multiple types of text completion questions. For example, there are questions with 1 blank, there are questions with 2 blanks, and there are questions with 3 blanks. In case of 1 blank question, you will be given 5 options. You'll have to choose the right option. In the case of 2 blanks questions, you will be given 3 options for each blank, and you'll have to pick the right answer for each blank. And only if you get both answers right, that question will be marked right. Okay, there is no partial score for getting 1 blank right. Similarly, there is a text completion question with 3 blanks, where there will be 3 dashes in the question, and you have to get all the 3 blanks right for you to get a point for that question. Yes, it will be mean, but that is how challenging the exam is, right? And there is another special type of question called the sentence equivalence question. Sentence equivalence questions are similar to text completion questions with 1 blank. There will be a sentence with a blank in it, and you will be given 6 answer choices, out of which you have to select 2 answer choices that will make the sentence sound similar. Okay, that will give a similar meaning. The two options need not be synonyms, but when they are plugged in the question, the given sentence will give the same a similar meaning. Okay, that is sentence sequence question. It is another challenging question type. All right. Now these two question types, sentence sequence and text completion question types, they are not connected to any passage. They will be standalone. So they are called discrete questions. Now this could be the starting point of your vocabulary preparation. Okay. Discrete is a beautiful word. It means standalone, single, or something like that. Okay. So discrete is separate. But there is another word, discreet, which means uh, done secretly. Okay. So it was a discrete operation, means it was done without many people's knowledge, something like that. So whenever you're learning words, try to learn them in relation with other words. That will help you learn words better. Okay. And one other important tip about learning words is remember in the GRE, you don't have to use those words, especially when it comes to essay writing. Don't try to use fancy words. Use only words that you're very familiar with. So when you're preparing for vocabulary for your GRE exam, all you need to do is when you see the word, you must be able to recognize the meaning in your own language. Even that is fine. As long as you see a word and recognize the meaning, that is enough. That is the kind of vocabulary we have to focus on. You don't have to focus on synonyms, trying to come up with antonyms. No, nothing of that sort is needed. You just have to have a basic understanding of a word, and whenever you see that word, you must be able to recall the meaning. That is the kind of vocabulary preparation you must focus on. All right. Now let's jump into today's session. Today's session is going to be understanding an argument. So a lot of people may think what an argument is. Argument, as we are familiar with, could be a quarrel between two people, could be a loud discussion between two people. But in a strict sense, in an academic sense, argument is something totally different. All right. What is an argument? Argument is basically any piece of text that makes a point. So what is making a point? It could be, say, providing a recommendation or giving a suggestion or giving a conclusion to something. These are all making a point. For example, I could say, the coffee I had this morning was bad. Okay, I'm making a point. Now, providing evidence for it. So it is not sufficient that you make a point, but you must provide sufficient evidence for it. Okay. So I can say the coffee I had this morning was bad. I have a bad stomach this afternoon. Okay. I'm feeling queasy this afternoon. Now that is evidence. I'm making a point saying the coffee was bad. And what evidence do I provide for it? I'm feeling uncomfortable this afternoon. Something like that. Okay. So these two together make up an argument. Argument is not just a point, it also must have an evidence supporting it, right? Now let's see. A claim, which is the point made. It could be a main idea, it could be a recommendation, it could be a conclusion, or it could be a suggestion, whatever. This is what we call a claim, okay? The point you're making, saying the coffee I had this morning was bad, is a claim, all right? Plus, you have to add evidence to it. So evidence or premise. So I could say there could be two pieces of evidence I'll give for this. The coffee I had this morning was bad. I haven't had anything else today and I'm feeling uncomfortable now. So these are two pieces of evidence that could support my claim saying the coffee was bad. Okay. So it's only when you have a claim and one or many pieces of evidence that you'll have an argument. Okay. All right. We have jumped into argument and we have understood at least somewhat what an argument is. But what is the point? How is an argument relevant in the GRE? Right. This is a question you must always ask, not just with respect to this particular session. Whatever you're studying, whatever you're learning, how is it relevant in your life? In this case, if you're going to write the GRE, how is it going to be useful in the GRE. In a broader sense, arguments will also be helpful for you in doing your research, in doing your MS. But let's come to that later. Right now, in the context of GRE, where is argument going to be helpful? Let's see. There are three different cases. One, critical reasoning. So there is a specific question type called critical reasoning, which is part of the reading comprehension part. In critical reasoning questions, you will be required to understand arguments, right? And there is reading comprehension, of course. They are huge passages with 3 or 4 questions attached to them. And you'll have to answer some questions where you have to understand what an argument is and what argument appears in a passage. And there is the third area, analyze an argument. So this is the essay writing part. There are 2 questions in the essay writing part, as I already told you. The second question, analyze an argument, is a specific question type where there will be a passage given to you and you'll have to analyze the argument made in that passage and spot weaknesses in the evidence provided, right? So there are 3 major areas in the GRE. Remember, critical reading and critical reasoning and reading comprehension together will contribute around 50% of your GRE, all right? And there is analyze an argument section, which is 30 minutes of your GRE exam. In these major areas, understanding an argument is very helpful. So please pay attention now. This is going to be a little more interesting going forward. We're going to apply a concept to understand how to solve a question, right? Let's look at a few sample arguments. First, it is no surprise that Kevin is so calm. He has painted his house light blue, and light blue is known to have a calming effect on people and induces sleep. All right. So this is a very simple argument. This has got nothing to do with the GRE. This is just to warm you up, right? These are types of arguments we hear a lot in general context. Kevin is always so calm. Why do you think he's calm? Because maybe he has painted his house light blue and light blue has a calming effect on people. So maybe that is why he's calm. Fine. Now let's look at a little more complex argument. In Gelavia, it is an imaginary place or something, okay? The GRE will have a lot of questions with imaginary places, especially in critical reasoning and analytical writing questions. There will be imaginary places and people, right? In Gelavia, the number of reported workplace injuries has declined 16% in the last 5 years. However, perhaps part of the decline results from injuries going unreported. Many employers have introduced safety incentive programs such as prize drawings for which only employees who have a perfect work safety record are eligible. Since a workplace injury would disqualify an employee from such programs, some employees might be concealing injury, which is feasible wherever it is feasible to do so. All right. Now, this is taken from an actual GRE critical reasoning question. So this is the stem. And after this, a question will be given asking you to choose an option that either strengthens this argument or choose an option that weakens this argument, something like that. Now, this is an argument, an actual GRE critical reasoning argument. Let's look at another example. A little larger. See if you can read it. See if you can understand all the words in it, or see if you can at least understand the argument, because these are the kinds of texts you're going to be reading a lot while you come to the GRE. All right. 2 years ago, radio station WCQP, again an imaginary name given, in Rockville. Rockville is also an imaginary place. Decided to increase the number of call-in advice programs. Do you have to know what call-in advice programs is? No. So they decided to increase the number of some types of programs. Okay. We know it's a radio station. They'll have different kinds of programs, and this is one of those programs. They decided to increase the number of call-in advice programs, that is broadcast. Since that time, its share of the radio audience in the Rockville listening area has increased significantly. Given WCQP's recent success with call-in advice programming, and citing a nationwide survey indicating that many radio listeners are quite interested in such programs, the station manager of KIC in Medway again, Kick is another radio station probably, recommends that Kick include more call-in advice programs in an attempt to gain a larger audience share in its listening area. Fine. So there are three different kinds of arguments. You don't have to break your head over this now. I'll show you how to find the claim and evidence in any given argument. All you need to do is follow a simple strategy. We are going to be learning this strategy and applying this on these three arguments today. This is going to be the simple agenda of today's session. Identifying claim and evidence. So we have seen that an argument is made up of claim and evidence, but you have to know which is which, right? For that, we introduce the why method. Okay. So what is the why method? It is used to understand which part is the claim of the argument. There are several parts. Some arguments may contain 4 or 5 sentences. It does not mean that a claim should be one sentence and evidence should be one sentence. Remember, I told you there could be multiple pieces of evidence. Sometimes the claim may need some introductory line to be given. So a premise plus claim together will be called a claim. So there are several ways to look at it. Let's put it simply like this. To understand which part is the claim of an argument, pick statement A. For example, take third statement in the third argument in the previous slide. It had 3 or 4 sentences, right? Now pick statement A, the first sentence. Ask the question why for the statement. All right, just ask why. If the answer to the question is available in the argument, in the rest of the sentences, okay? So why statement A, and if the answer is available in any of the other sentences, then statement A is the claim of the argument, right? So you ask question on A, so sentence A, why? If you have the answer in any of the other sentences, then sentence A is the claim. And the answer to the why question is the evidence, right? It is that simple. So you ask why. If there is an answer, the answer is evidence, and the given statement is the claim. If the answer to the question is not available in the argument, then move on. Statement A is not the claim. Pick the next statement. Do the same steps again. All right. Now this may look like a long-winded process, but you need some practice with this. Let's start practicing with a few arguments. Let's apply the strategy and see how it helps. All right. Let's apply the why method. Let's take argument 1. It is no surprise that Kevin is so calm. All right. He has painted his house light blue, and light blue is known to have a calming effect on people and induces sleep. Fine. We can split this into 3 statements. Why 3? There are only 2 sentences here. How do we split it into 3 statements? Here I'm not going to discuss this process now, but this is part of our galvanized training program where we train people to split sentences and understand it in simpler parts. All right. For example, here he has painted his house light blue, and light blue is known to have. There are 2 sentences combined using and. You can just split it into 2 different sentences. Let's do that. Statement A is, it is no surprise that Kevin is so calm. Fine. Statement B is, he has painted his house light blue. Fine. The third statement is, light blue is known to have a calming effect on people and induces sleep. Right? So there are 3 different statements here. You are going to find which one is the claim and which one is the evidence. Remember, there may not be one statement for claim and there may not be just one statement for evidence. But the why test is going to help us understand which is the claim and which is the evidence. Right? Let's apply the why method. Let's take statement A. The first step of why method is ask why on statement A. Why is Kevin so calm? Or why is it not a surprise that Kevin is so calm? You could ask either types of questions. It is no surprise that Kevin is so calm. Why? Why is it not a surprise that Kevin is so calm? Or why is Kevin so calm? Let's see if the answer is there in the other 2 statements in the given argument. All right? He has painted his house light blue. Does that answer why Kevin is calm? No, not yet. Let's move on to the next statement. Light blue is known to have a calming effect on people and induces sleep. So this statement alone does not answer why Kevin is so calm. Why is Kevin so calm? Light blue is known to have a calming effect on people. No, that does not make sense, right? But if you put these both together, Kevin has painted his house light blue, and light blue has a calming effect on people. Now these two together stand as evidence for this. They give an answer to the question, right? Something like, because he has painted his house light blue, and blue has a calming effect on people. Fine. Now, does this answer the question why? Yes. So this is straightforward. Statement A is the claim of the argument, and statements B and C together stand as evidence. This is very similar to the coffee example I gave earlier. The coffee I had this morning must have been bad. Why should the coffee have been bad? I had nothing else today. I'm feeling uncomfortable now. Okay, so there are two statements I'm making, and it is only both together that will serve as evidence for my claim. It is very similar. Now think of a lot of cases where you'll read newspaper articles where the claim is made without giving proper evidence. Or even while you're discussing movies with friends, you'll just say, I don't like that movie. Why? You must have a reason. Unless you provide evidence, your argument is not valid. Okay, this is going to be very crucial in the GRE because be it critical reasoning, be it analytical writing, this concept is going to be important. Unless you're providing evidence and providing the right kind of evidence, your argument is not complete. And worse, here in GRE, be it critical reasoning questions, be it analytical writing question, the argument will contain claim and evidence, but the evidence will be faulty. All right. Say, for example, here, there are two pieces of evidence provided, but say add another piece of evidence. Joseph also has a light blue house. Okay, Joseph also has painted his house light blue, but he is short-tempered. All right. Now we are adding pieces of evidence that will collapse this argument because this argument is relying solely on this evidence. If you say that people who have light blue houses are not always calm, then this claim will be invalidated, right? This is the kind of process that will be involved in critical reasoning, reading comprehension, and analytical writing sections. All right. The argument will have claim and evidence, but what you will be required to do is find evidence that will increase support to the claim or find evidence that weakens the claim. But before going into all those things, what you need to do is, while looking at a 4 or 5 sentence argument, you must be able to separate the claim and evidence. So that is what we are focusing on now. Once you have done this, you know what the claim is and you know what the evidence is, you'll be able to provide additional evidence that is in support of or against the claim. And you will also be able to spot flaws in evidence, right? For all that, this is very important. That is why we are focusing so much on this now. Let's move on to the next argument, right? In Gelavia, the number of reported workplace injuries. Now, another point when you come to the GRE exam is adjectives. Adjectives are very crucial, be it discrete questions, be it critical reasoning questions. Adjectives are very crucial. Adjectives are basically words that describe names. Okay, so here workplace injuries is a noun phrase. It's a naming. Okay, so there are some types of injuries. Reported workplace injuries, this adds value to this. So workplace injuries that are reported. An employee gets injured, he goes and reports saying, I have been injured, I need to take first aid, something like that. Okay. In Gelavia, the number of reported workplace injuries has declined 16% in the last 5 years. So from 2015 to 20, in this particular phase, the number of reported workplace injuries has declined by 16%. All right. However, perhaps part of the decline results from injuries going unreported. Now, here is the catch. Maybe some people are not reporting their injuries. Maybe that is why this 16% decline has come. Right. Many employers have introduced safety incentive programs, such as prize drawings, for which only employees who have a perfect work safety record are eligible. So, if an employee has been injured, has reported an injury, then they may not be able to participate in this fancy program. Okay. So many employers have such programs where only people without any injuries reported in the past 1 year or something can participate. Since a workplace injury would disqualify an employee from such programs, some employees might be concealing injury when it is feasible to do so. Now, are there any hard words here? Safety incentive, perhaps. So incentive, you may have come across this word incentive in several contexts. For example, salary. So people are drawing salary. They'll be given an incentive to appreciate their efforts and to make them work harder. All right. So incentive is basically anything that encourages you to do something better. That's all. Okay. Incentive is anything that encourages you to do better. For example, if you score a good mark, if you really score well in your plus 2 exams, parents have this habit of buying you something fancy. It is not just to appreciate, wow, you have accomplished. Not just that. It also serves to make you work better. Okay, if you do something good, I'll be getting something you good. So keep doing something good and I'll get you more good stuff. All right. Now I might have got you a new mobile phone. Next I'll get you a maybe PlayStation. Okay, whatever you like. So if you keep doing better, I'll be giving you something good. That is incentive. Okay, it is not just to appreciate you. What is safety incentive program? So if you're being safe, then I'll probably give you some money. So if you keep being safe, you'll earn extra money going forward. All right. So safety incentive is to encourage safety. That's all. Are there any other difficult words here? Concealing injury? No, conceal is to hide. That's all. There are not any difficult words, but are you able to understand all the sentences? Are you able to understand the relationship between sentences? This is very important. This is another skill we teach. So whenever you read a reading comprehension passage or even an argument, you must be able to understand every sentence and the relationship between these sentences before moving on, right? Every part is crucial. Like I highlighted earlier, this word reported is crucial. But how do you know that? There is a lot of skill involved there. You have to learn that before you even start parsing sentences. For example, text completion with 3 blank questions will have a passage very similar to this, but there will be 3 blanks which will make it harder to read. But how are you going to figure it out? That is something we will teach in our course, right? Now let's come back to this argument. We have to find the claim and evidence in this argument. There are several parts in it, and any single part could be a claim, and the other parts, all the other parts could be evidence, right? Let's first break this up. Statement A is in Gelavia, the number of reported workplace injuries has declined 16% in the last 5 years. Fine. That is a whole sentence. It cannot be split into multiple parts. Let's keep it as such. Next. However, perhaps part of the decline results from injuries going unreported. Fine. Now, do you see this small punctuation mark colon? We never use this in written language much, right? At best, we would use that for subheadings, right? We never use it elsewhere. But what is a colon used for? You make a small statement and you're going to explain it in detail in the following sentence. If you're going to do that, you need not place a period. You can just use a colon. For this sentence, this whole part is going to be an elaboration. Okay? This from many employers to are eligible is an elaboration, an explanation of this small part. Okay? So a colon has a very significant role, and in the GRE, I think ETS is very fond of colon. ETS is the organization that conducts the GRE. It designs the exam, it conducts the exam. Okay, I think ATS is very fond of colons. You will find it everywhere. Reading comprehension passage, tick. It could be in your discrete questions. It could be in a sentence sequence questions. It could be in your text completion questions. It is in your CR question here. Okay, this is a typical critical reasoning question. Following this, there will be a question asking which of the following options best weakens the given argument. All right. We are not going into the question now. Let's try and understand this argument. So whenever there is a colon, try to split it into two parts. This is the statement, and this is the explanation of the statement. All right. Let's split it into two parts now. Statement B is, however, perhaps part of the decline results from injuries going unreported. Fine. Next part is, many employers have introduced safety incentive programs such as prize drawings for which only employees who have a perfect work safety record are eligible. Now, another tip here, whenever there is such as or like, you can ignore whatever follows. Okay, it is an example. You have to read the example, but you can keep it aside. It is not so important, right? Many employers have introduced safety incentive programs. That is enough. And what are safety incentive programs? They are like some contests or something where employees who have perfect work safety record are eligible to attend. Fine. You can keep this in mind. You don't have to struggle with this. From such as to are eligible. Next, statement D. Since a workplace injury would disqualify an employee from such programs, some employees might be concealing injury when it is feasible to do so. So whenever you can hide your injury, say if it is in your shoulder or something, they'll hide it. They don't have to show it. Only if you have a bleeding finger or something, people will see, right? If you have a shoulder injury, no one will notice. So you won't report that injury. Something like that, okay? We have 4 statements here, and we need to find which one is the claim here, okay? Let's follow the why method. All you need to do is pick the first statement and ask why. In Gelavia, the number of reported workplace injuries has declined 16% in the last 5 years. So why has the number of workplace injuries declined in the last 5 years? Fine. Do we have an answer in any of those statements? Let's see. Statement B. However, perhaps part of the decline results from injuries going unreported. Now, does this answer why the number of injuries have declined? Number of reported injuries has declined. It says, however, okay, and it is talking about unreported injuries. Now, this is still not answering why the number of reported injuries has declined. It could be because of multiple reasons. Let's look at statement C. Many employers have introduced safety incentive programs which call for perfect work safety record. Now, this is not answering the question why either. Next, since a workplace injury would disqualify an employee from such programs, some employees might be concealing injury, which is when it is feasible to do so. Again, this is not talking about why the number of workplace reported injuries has declined. Okay, remember this is just possibility. It is not an explanation, it is just a possibility. However, perhaps part of the decline. So the word perhaps is used to denote possibility, a probability, right? None of these statements provide evidence to this question. That is, none of these statements gives an answer to this why question. So none of this is evidence. So statement A is not the claim. Okay, let's move on. We have already taken care of statement A. Let's look at statement B. However, perhaps part of the decline results from injuries going unreported. Now let's jog back a bit. If you remember the definition of a claim that I had given, a claim is basically a conclusion, a recommendation, a suggestion, right? Any of these. Let's ask a question here. Why does the author think the decline is due to unreported injuries? Okay. I'm adding this, why does the author think? Because there is perhaps, right? Perhaps is used to denote a probability or possibility. And whenever there is probability or possibility, you are assuming something. Okay. However, perhaps part of the decline results from injuries going unreported. Why does the author feel injuries are going unreported? Now let's see statement C. Many employers have these programs where only people with perfect work safety record are eligible. And since a workplace injury would disqualify these people, they may be concealing their injury. Now, this answers this question, right? Why does the author think there is a decline due to unreported injuries? Because there is a program like this, and because people will not like to disclose their injury, there are unreported injuries. Fine. Now we have answer to the question why in statements C and D. Because employees do not want to be disqualified for safety incentive programs. Fine. Now what is statement A doing here? What is the part of it? Statement A is the context in which this is given. So this is basically the premise based on which this statement is made. So this is also part of the claim. All right. Now let's go back a bit. A claim is a recommendation, a suggestion, or a conclusion. Here it is kind of a suggestion. Maybe it is because of this. That is the kind of suggestion, right? And for the suggestion, they have given evidence. There is this particular program happening and people don't like to miss out on the program. If they have injuries, they'll miss out on the program. So they don't report it. Fine. So you have a claim, you have evidence. This piece of information is required for you to make sense of this. So this is a premise which is part of the claim. All right. It is as simple as this. Statements A and B are together the claim of an argument. Statement A is basically the premise. A premise is the fundamental fact or information provided before you make a claim. Okay. And statements C and D are the evidence for that particular claim. Neat. Now, shall we go on to a more challenging argument, the third one. Okay. This is taken from an analytical writing part, the analyze an argument essay. This is how the essay will start. So you have to look at this argument, and then there will be a question asking you to analyze the stated and unstated assumptions in the given argument, or pose questions that could invalidate the argument, something like that. You'll have to write around 500 words analyzing this in detail. But to analyze this, you must be able to understand what the claim is and what the evidence is. Once you have found the evidence, you'll have to tear it apart, saying some other evidence is possible, or this evidence needs to be analyzed further, something like that. Okay. But first, you have to understand what the claim is and what the evidence is. Let's read it. 2 years ago, that is in 2018, radio station WCQP in Rockville. So, radio station A, let's not keep those names. Radio station A decided to increase the number of call-in advice programs that it broadcast. So there is a type of program that this radio station broadcasts. It increased the number of those programs. Fine. Since that time, so since 2018, its share of the radio audience in the Rockville listening area has increased significantly. Now this is another statement provided. So this all deals with WCQP, that is radio station A. Next. Given A's recent success with call-in advice programming, with this particular kind of programming, and citing a nationwide survey indicating that many radio listeners are quite interested in such programs. Okay, so there are two pieces of information. Station A has had some success in this programming. Okay. And another thing is, there is a survey indicating that many listeners are interested in such programs. Fine. The station manager of KIC, take it as B, a station B, okay? The station manager of B recommends that B include more call-in advice programs in an attempt to gain a larger audience share in its listening area. Fine. Now, can you understand the story? The story is that radio station A increased a particular type of program, and since that particular time, radio audience, its share of radio audience has increased. Fine. So, because radio station A had the success, and because a survey shows that many radio listeners are interested in such programs, station B wants to include more of the same programs, okay, so that they can also get larger audience. So A has done something, he has seen success since then, so B also wants to do that. Fine. Now we have to understand what the claim is and what the evidence is. Let's split this into multiple parts. Now we see another punctuation mark here, a semicolon. A colon is used when a statement is elaborated later, okay, when there is an explanation provided for a shorter statement. A semicolon is used when they are basically two different sentences, but they have a connection. For example, here, radio station A increased the number of call-in programs. Since that time, its share of radio audience has increased. Fine. These two can be separate sentences, but there is a small relationship between these two sentences. So I'm going to place a semicolon. A comma will make the sentence too long. It will be hard to read it. So I'm making it a semicolon. A semicolon is a longer comma. That's all. Okay. Basically, these two parts are connected, but they could also be read as separate sentences. Fine. So we have two statements here. Let's mark them down. Statement A is 2 years ago, station A in Rockville decided to increase the number of call and advice programs. Statement B is, since that time, maybe 2018, since 2018, its share of radio audience in Rockville listening area has increased significantly. Fine. Now, next. Given WCQP's recent success with call-in advice programming and citing a nationwide survey indicating that many radio listeners are quite interested in such programs, the station manager of KIC recommends blah blah blah. Here, it's a complex sentence. Whenever a sentence starts with given, it means cause and effect. Okay, so based on this, something else happens. Okay, given how we have been locked down for the past 5 months, it is not surprising that most people want their freedom back. Okay, a very relatable concept. Given how we have been locked down for the past 6 months, most people want their freedom back. So cause is we have been locked down for 6 months. Effect is we want our freedom back. Okay, whether it is good, the freedom is good for us is a different argument, but this is the mentality of people right now. So let's take it as an example. Here, given station A's success with call-in advising programming and citing a nationwide survey. So there are two causes, okay, separated by and. So there are two causes, and whatever follows that is the effect. The station manager recommends is the effect. Okay. So let's combine the two causes and put it as one statement. WCQP has seen recent success with call-in advice programming, and a nationwide survey indicates that many radio listeners are quite interested in such programs. Okay. So station A has found some success, and there is a survey saying that these programs are sought after by listeners. So there are 2 points. Statement D is the station manager of KIC wants to include more call-in advice programs. Fine. We have 4 statements again. There are only 2 sentences, but see how complex the sentences are that we can split it into 4 to 5 parts. This is how complex all texts will be on the GRE. So you must be able to understand these texts. You must be able to split these texts like I have done to understand them easily. Now the next part is the challenging part, applying the why method. Remember, while you keep doing this on 4 or 5 arguments, this will come to you like in a second. Okay. You just need to practice this in 4 or 5 arguments. Once you're done with that, you don't have to write it on paper or look at it on slides like this. You'll be able to easily find which is the claim and which is the evidence. But for that, you need to practice, right? Okay. Statement A. 2 years ago, radio station WCQP in Rockville decided to increase the number of call and advice programs that it broadcasts. Fine. What is the first step? Ask why on statement A. Why did the radio station increase the number of call-in programs? Why did they do that? Is there an answer in any of the statements? Let's see. Since that time, its share of radio audience in Rockville listening area has increased significantly. This does not say why. It is a result of this, but this is not. This does not answer why. Okay, they might have done this for some other reason, but this was a result. Okay, so this is not what they expected. That is not given in the sentence. So this is not a reason. Fine. Let's move on. WCQP has seen recent success, and there is a survey showing that there are quite a few listeners who are interested in that program. Again, this is not why they did this. Okay, this comes after. After they did this, this is coming. So this is not why they did this. So this is also not evidence. Let's go to statement D. The station manager of KIC, it goes somewhere else. We are talking about WCQP and they are talking about KIC. This is also not evidence. So none of these statements provides evidence for this or answers for this why question. No evidence provided. So statement A is not the claim. Let's remove it. Let's move on to statement B. Since that time, its share of radio audience in Rockville listening area has increased significantly. Now I'm going to ask you a crucial question. Why did the share of audience increase in Rockville? Okay. Now if you think it is because WCQP increased the number of call and advice programs, you may be wrong. Okay. Let me give you an example. I was born in 1990. Since that time, India has faced several natural catastrophes. Okay, I was born in 1990, and since that time, India has faced a lot of natural calamities. Does it mean all the natural calamities occurred because I was born? No, right? Why did the natural calamities occur? Because I was born in 1990. Doesn't make sense, right? So remember, this is very crucial. So since that time, its share of radio audience has increased, doesn't mean increasing the call and advice programs has increased this. Okay, this is a crucial piece of understanding you must have. Okay, so this is not evidence for this. Why did the share of audience increase? Because WCQP increased the number of advice programs is not right. So this is not evidence. Let's move on. WCQP has seen recent success with call and advice programs and survey. Again, this is after this happened, so this cannot be evidence. Remember, evidence must be before something happened. Statement D again deals with KIC. It is not at all related to WCQP or this increase in Rockville because KIC is in Medway. So these two do not provide evidence either. No evidence provided. All right. Please remember, if here, instead of since that time, if they had given as a result of which, then it would make sense. Okay. WCQP increased the number of programs as a result of which its share of radio audience increase would make sense. Then this would be evidence. But since that time cannot mean it is evidence. Okay. Remember the example I gave you? I was born in 1990 and since then India has faced a lot of natural calamities. No, it is not because I was born that the natural calamities occur. Okay. On the other hand, I was born in 1990 as a result of which India faced several natural calamities. Forget the logic of it, but say I'm a evil super villain. Okay. And since I was born, as a result of my birth, several natural calamities occur, then it makes sense. Why did natural calamities occur? Because I was born. Fine, that will be evidence. But since that time does not suggest that this is a result of this. Clear? Let's move on. We have eliminated these two statements. These two are not claims. Let's move on to statement C. WCQP has seen recent success, and a nationwide survey indicates that many radio listeners are quite interested in such programs. Let's ask why. Why has WCQP seen success? Or why has the survey indicated that radio listeners are interested in such programs? Do we have answers anywhere here? Why did WCQP see success? We don't know if it is because of this. Okay, they did this, and after that this happened. Doesn't mean it is because of that they saw success. Okay. Also, why has the survey indicated that radio listeners are interested in such programs? Do we have answer? Let's see statement D just in case. Station manager of KIC recommends something. Now again, this does not give an answer for this question. Why are listeners interested in that program? No, we don't have answer anywhere. So no evidence provided. Statement C is also not the claim. Let's move on to statement D. The station manager of KIC in Medway recommends that. Remember, I told you a claim is mostly a recommendation, a conclusion, or a suggestion. Here it is explicitly given that the station manager recommends. Okay, recommends that KIC include more call-in advice programs in an attempt to gain a larger audience share in its listening area. Fine. Why has KIC decided to include more call-in advice programs? Why does the station manager recommend this? Because 2 years ago this happened, that is WCQP increased their call-in advice programs, and since then they have had more listeners, and then there is a nationwide survey that says more radio listeners are interested in such programs. So because of all these reasons, station manager of KIC has recommended this step. Okay. Now, since these three statements provide answer to this question why, these three are evidence and statement D is the claim. All right. So statement D is the claim of the argument, and statements A, B, and C are evidence for the claim. Now I would like to give a small tip for you for the analytical writing section. Analyze an argument. This is basically an argument. Okay. All these things put together is an argument. Now what you're required to do in an analyze an argument section is spot the flaws in the evidence provided. Is this evidence for this? Really? Something like that. Okay. So 2 years ago, this WCQP decided to increase the number of call-in programs, and since that time, its share of radio audience has increased. Does this mean it is because of increasing call-in advice programs that audience increased? This is a question you can ask, and then you can elaborate saying it could be because of other reasons. There could be other steps taken by WCQP that could have led to increase in audience, or more radio listening population entered Rockville during that time. There are several other evidence you can provide to weaken this claim. So to weaken a particular claim, you can provide counter evidence. That is, you can say, instead of this, we could have some other evidence. Okay. To strengthen a claim, you can add evidence to it. How? Okay. Say its share of radio audience increased since they did this. If you add an evidence saying WCQP did nothing else different during this time. Okay. They did only this, and following that, share of audience increased. They did nothing else. So they did nothing else is another piece of evidence you're adding to strengthen the claim. Okay. The claim is that radio listening audience increased because of this program. Okay. So understand this difference. In an analyze an argument task where you have to write an essay, you are required to tear down the argument. You are required to find the mistakes in the argument, spot the flaws. Okay. But if it is a strengthening question in a critical reasoning question, if it is a strengthening question, you have to add evidence that will make this the only way. Okay, so WCQP increased their call-in advice programs and audience increased. These two need not be related. But if you're going to add a point saying WCQP did nothing else new, then it adds evidence saying, okay, this could be the only cause for this. Okay, so understand this difference. In an analyze an argument essay, you have to invalidate the argument by spotting flaws in the evidence. Let's look at another flaw. Okay, a nationwide survey indicates that many radio listeners are quite interested in such programs. So a nationwide survey includes Medway, includes Rockville, and includes several other places. Okay, say 100 people attempted this survey, out of which only 2 people were Medway, and both those people did not vote for this. They say, no, I'm not interested in this program. But 67 people from other places say, I'm interested in this program. Based on such data, if the station manager implements this recommendation, then they'll be screwed, right? Medway people are not interested in it. It's only other people are interested in it. When it's a nationwide survey, it cannot stand for Medway, right? The survey must have been conducted in Medway for it to be valid. So this is another piece of evidence you can show, saying the author has showed a nationwide survey as evidence, but a survey conducted in Medway would be more relevant than a nationwide survey. We do not know how many people in Medway are interested in such programs. So this is another point you can add in your argument essay. All right. For all this, you have to know what the claim is and what evidence is provided to support that claim. Clear? Now, what I would like for you guys to do is, maybe after today's session, you can go home. I'll share a link with you on the Google Meet page. This is ETS, the organization that conducts the GRE. They have provided a pool of arguments. This is for analytical writing, analyze an argument task. They have provided a pool of arguments, around 150 arguments, out of which this is one. Okay. I want you to go through each of them, try to find claimant evidence using this method. Ask why on each statement and see if the answer lies in any other statement. If it is the case, then the statement on which you ask why is the claim, and the rest of the statements are evidence. Fine. Please try this. This could be a good exercise for you. This will help you understand arguments not only for analyze an argument section, but also for critical reasoning and to an extent on reading comprehension. Now I'll tell you where and how do I apply today's lesson. Okay, we are nearing the end of today's session. Whenever you learn anything, it could be your engineering, be something random on a newspaper. Whenever you learn something new, ask this question: where and how do I apply these things that I learned today? Okay, let's look at it. In reading comprehension, there is this question type called hypothetical inference question. So there will be a passage on dinosaurs, a particular type of dinosaur on which a research was done, saying this dinosaur could not have held its neck tall. It probably held its neck horizontally, not vertically. Okay, think of Jurassic Park. Okay, there is this dinosaur with a long neck and it stands like a giraffe. Okay, but research says that no, I don't think it held its neck vertically. I think it would have held its neck horizontally. Okay, there is research like that, and then there will be evidence provided for why they think so. In such a passage, a question will appear like this. Remember, you will get at least one hypothetical inference question in every GRE verbal section. Okay, so in hypothetical inference question, you will be asked to choose an option that adds support or weakens the claim in the passage. Okay, the question would be something like this: which of the following information, if true, would cast serious doubt on the author's claim, or would add strength to the author's claim? In that case, You'll have to understand what the claim and what evidence the author provides before you can look at the options and find which one would be a suitable evidence or which one would be a contradictory evidence, right? For that, you must be able to identify claim and evidence. Next, critical reasoning. Critical reasoning is a major area where you would be applying this claim and evidence. Almost all the questions in this section will need you to be able to understand what the claim is and what evidence is provided to support the claim. Okay, almost all the questions. There will be only one or two rare question types that will not involve this. Even then, for understanding the argument, you will need this. Okay. Next, analyze an argument. Here, the essay will completely rely on your ability to identify the evidence provided. Okay, it is only after identifying the evidence can you spot the flaws in the evidence, right? And you will be required to question the validity of the evidence provided. Like I showed in the last argument, you can question the validity. How can a nationwide survey be relevant to what is applicable in Midway? Okay, that is a question you can ask. Another thing is, how can you say that because WCPQ increased their programs, their listeners increased? There is no evidence like that. Okay, so you'll have to ask questions to invalidate the given argument. That is the crux of analyze an argument section. Okay, so what you can do is you can look through the arguments in the given pool that I shared with you on Google Meet. Remember, the Google Meet session once closed, you will not be able to access that link. So please copy it and paste it somewhere. It will be helpful. Please try and apply the session, apply whatever we learned today, the why method. Apply it on all the arguments. At least take 4 or 5 arguments from there and apply on them. See if you can find the claim and evidence. That will be a good exercise. This is another point I would like to tell you. Once you learn something, unless you practice it, unless you apply it somewhere, you won't be able to remember it well. Okay, once you start applying it, it will be second nature to you. Like how you do not have to look at a dictionary for every word I'm speaking. English is not your mother tongue, right? But since you have learned it so long, and since you have started speaking in it, you don't need a dictionary every time someone speaks. You're able to understand it just like that. It is second nature to you. Just like that, whenever you learn something, apply it and it becomes second nature. This is very important. Okay. What follows this step? Okay, I can understand what claim is, what evidence is. What follows this step? There are so many lessons that follows after this, which we'll do it in our detailed course. Identifying flaws in an argument. This is also crucial for critical reasoning and analytical writing. Identifying flaws, there are several types of flaws. That is a session that will take its own time. Solving different critical reasoning question types. There are a variety of question types, not just strengthening, weakening. There will be identifying assumptions. There will be missing information question type, and there will be analogy question type, and there will be resolving paradox question type. There are several question types. You may not understand these terminologies now, but that is a session of its own. Understanding critical reasoning question types and solving them. There are strategies for each question type. Writing an amazing analytical writing argument essay. That is a different session. And solving hypothetical inference questions in GRE. These are sessions that will follow claim and evidence session. Okay, whatever you've learned today will make sense when you learn these sessions. And once you're done with this, you'll be really ready for the GRE. But this is not the only concepts that are applicable in GRE global section. There are a lot more. There is text completion question, how to solve text completion questions, and how to read reading comprehension passages and solve the questions related to that. All those things will be conducted in detail. Okay. So there is one other point I wanted to mention. What is the point of taking the GRE exam now? You're all in college now. You're not sure if you're going to do an MS right away. You may choose to work for a couple of years and then maybe think about MS. It is all fine. But think about this. You're in college now, you're studying, you have a lot of time. Okay? I'm sure you have a lot of time. I'll tell you something. I was an engineer. I studied engineering. I graduated in 2012, and then I worked for 3 years as an engineer, and then moved on to literature field. Engineering was not for me. Okay, I worked in an MNC for 3 years. It wasn't satisfying, I've always loved literature, so I moved on to literature. Now, if I want to do a master's in literature or PhD in literature, I could have still used my JRE score from 2012. Okay, I decided to shift my field in 2015, and still I wrote my GRE in 2012, and it would have been still useful. Okay, so remember this: GRE exam is valid for 5 years. The score you get in the GRE exam is valid for 5 years. So you can work for the next couple of years. Work will be hectic. You won't find any time to do what you like, especially when you are a fresher. You will be required to put your maximum in it. So you won't have any time to study. Now is the time when you're studying. Now is the time when you have a lot of free time in your hand. Finish the GRE, leave it aside. Okay, have your score, keep it aside. You can decide on your future later. Okay, finish your GRE now. For all you know, the GRE exam pattern may change. It is not likely, but it is possible. Okay, so suddenly 2 years from now, the exam pattern may have changed. It may be a lot tougher, and preparing for that may be harder for you once you have joined a job. Okay, so when things are stable, when you have time, finish the GRE, have a score, keep it aside. Maybe if you're choosing to work for a couple of years, it is fine. Or your GRE score could be so good that you will be tempted to join MS right away. But whatever it is, now is the prime time for you to take the GRE, right? So keep that in mind, and don't delay taking your exam. If you're going to start preparing now, have your exam in 6 to 9 months. Okay, don't delay that too much. I'll prepare now and maybe take it after 1 year. It won't work. It is a skill you have to keep. You can unmute and ask me any questions if you have, or you can put your questions on the chat box, whichever is convenient for you.
Students, you can ask your doubts.
It need not be just based on today's session. It could be your general questions regarding the GRE or the admissions process, whatever questions you have with respect to studying abroad. Anything you have, you can ask me.